If you're like me, you're always looking for new plugins to take your productions or mixes to the next level, whether that's making them sound better or making things faster. But what I really like to see is what people are using the most. What are the plugins that they rely on all the time to get their productions across the finish line? Because those are the ones that I'm probably going to get the most value out of. So in order to give you some more options, here are my top 5 plugins that I've used the most this year so far. The first one we're going to start with is Sublab by Future Audio Workshop. If you're basically making any kind of modern music, you're going to need a good 808 or a good sub bass. That's where Sublab comes in. Sublab allows you to create such different intricate bass sounds. Whether you're doing something for rock music, hip hop, even lo-fi, you can make really great lo-fi sub basses with it as well. They have 3 great sound engines, a synth engine, a sampler engine, and an X sub engine. The synth engine allows you to use either a sine, triangle, saw, or square wave as the basis of your sound and start building it and shaping it from there. The sampler engine allows you to load in an 808 that you already have a sample of and then fine tune it from there, or add a kick to add some extra punch and then blend it in with your synth sub. Then the X sub uses the harmonic sequence to add extra low end either in the bass or the sub area. And you can blend all 3 of these engines together using the mixer, the filter, distortion, and compression to create a super unique sound. Here's an example of a preset called 11th Dimension. If you're looking to buy this now, there's actually a version called Sublab XL that's the newer version than the one that I have. And I'm really thinking, based off what I'm seeing, that I'm gonna need to upgrade really soon because there's a lot more options and a lot of very cool parameters that you can mess with in that as well. Number 2 is the God Particle. It's a plugin by Cradle in collaboration with mixer Jason Joshua. If you don't know Jason Joshua, he's mixed artists like Beyonce, Jay-Z, Justin Bieber, and like everybody else, his credits are crazy. His mixes are a lot of the people on the top of the charts. The God Particle is essentially a mix bus plugin. You have your input gain section, you have an EQ overall with 3 bands, high, mid, and low, and then that is fed into a multi-band compressor that's doing high, low, and mid compression separately and is using it to shape each of the areas and also control certain areas. Especially, I noticed this in the mid-range and the low end. After that, it feeds into a limiter that you can turn on and off, and then your output controls to make sure that you are in the right volume range that you want it to send out of. Where I find this super useful is when I'm either in pre-production, the demo phase, or the songwriting phase, and I want something to throw on the master bus just to kind of make it loud and compress it, and a very general master bus chain so that when we're listening back to something, it's not too quiet and it kind of sounds a little bit mixed already. It's especially helpful when I'm pitching beats to people and I'm not fully mixing the beat, I'm just sending an idea. Moving on to number 3 is one of my desert island plugins, and that is Fab Filter Pro Q3. Fab Filter just does so many cool things so differently than I think everybody else. This is just a normal EQ from what you would think, but it has so many other options under the hood. You can create as many bands as you want, and you can also right-click a band to make it dynamic as well. And that is upward or downwards dynamic, which can be really helpful if you're trying to do things like control hi-hat bleed in a snare or control certain frequencies, or you want to boost certain frequencies when they hit the threshold. Another great use case for Pro Q3 is instead of having a band only affect the entirety of the mix, you can actually just have it affect the mid or the side of the mix. So you want to EQ out some low end from the mid range, but you don't want it to lose some of that punch in the wide. You can actually just create a low band, right click the band and make it mid only. And another thing that people like to do is create a shelf up top, right click that, and maybe make that only on the sides to make the sides slightly brighter maybe than the mid range. There are so many other really cool things. You can even make square frequencies by making the band's slope extremely tight. If you set it to 96 dB per octave, it'll make it almost a square band, and you can actually cut out certain frequencies entirely. I get so much use out of this plugin It lives on my master bus. It goes on almost every single channel that I'm working on a mix or production. It's a little pricey, but if you don't have it, I would highly recommend fronting the money and picking it up. Number 4 is RC20 by XLR Audio. You've probably seen this plugin if you've watched any kind of lo-fi production videos, or really a lot of people on YouTube tend to really like this plugin, and that's because it creates such cool sounds with very simplistic UI. Obviously, you can deep dive into each of these areas if you want, but I love the simplicity of just the single knob per area, just giving it the mix and adding more whenever you turn it up and turn it down. It's very easy, and honestly, this Vinyl 1 preset that it loads into is really, really great for just kind of a starting spot. I normally end up turning the noise down a good bit, but I'll use the wobble and the distortion and some of the magnetic function on things like drums, sometimes on vocals. If I want a cool effect vocal, it's really, really great for those kind of things as well. And somewhere recently, I found that I really, really enjoyed using it was giving just a little bit of extra something to some synths that felt maybe a little stale, or some pianos that felt like it needed a little life into it. Just adding that distortion and some of that wobbled and some of the reverb built into this thing, just, I don't know, gives it a little bit of extra something. But a part of RC20 that I did not expect to love a lot is the width knob. It does a great job of taking things and pushing them to the side, making space in a mix so that whenever you have a synth, it's not crowding the middle and you're getting out of the way of things like the vocal and the bass and anything that you might want to be very forward and in the middle. And a more recent addition to my plugin collection, and it's slowly finding its way into the regular use throughout the year since I've picked it up, is the Clairvoyant Ampim by Modern Metal Songwriter. Now, I don't write as much metal music as I used to in my earlier years back in like high school and college, but this plugin, I don't know, there's just something really cool about it. One, it takes very little CPU usage. I've been very happy with how easily it loads in, and I can have multiple instances of it so that when I'm writing a song with guitar, that I don't feel like I have to fiddle with things or load in a bunch of components of, you know, amps and things like that. Everything's kind of built in to get the idea quickly from my brain into the computer. The UI is really simple, very easy to use. I love the effects that it comes with, which it comes with an overdrive, a fuzz, a lo-fi pedal, and a delay and reverb options. Some really great presets that are pretty easy to use, and if you're a preset person, you're gonna get a lot of mileage out of those. But also a very great clean sound. For an amp plugin company that this is their first foray into making a plugin, this is one of the better clean sounds of a heavy amp that I've ever heard, which makes it super versatile because you have your low gain clean sound that can be used for anything from pop and lo-fi and things like that. You have your mid-gain sound that could be used to, I don't know, write some pop punk or some of that chuggy trap pop punk kind of thing that's kind of going around TikTok right now. And then the heavy amp obviously can be used for like heavier music, or you can actually run synths through it and create some really cool sounds as well. So it can actually turn into more of a sound creation tool as well as an amp model and just, you know, something more for utility. If you want to learn more about the Clairvoyant Ampim, we actually interviewed Isaiah Prather from Modern Metal Songwriter on my podcast, The Home Studio Hangout. So if you want to learn more about how it was made and what they kind of look for into the future of their company, you should go check that out. Isaiah was a really great conversation. It was super awesome to have him on the podcast. Now, if you're looking for some more production tricks, or maybe you're working in Ableton for the first time, I have a video right over here that is going to show you how I produce in Ableton, and I'm going to build a track in that video from start to finish. So go check that out, and I'll see you over there in the next one.